know these gentlemen have a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it in. But first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for coming out to the rally this afternoon.
Yeah.
We are noted for pulling off things in the last minute. And so this is a great turnout. But my job this afternoon, I'm Delegate Rosalind Tyler, House of Delegate Representative for the 75th District. But I am here to introduce our special guest this afternoon. So first I'm going to start with Governor Kaine, Governor Tim Kaine. As you know, in 2005, I ran on his ticket for the Virginia House of Delegates. And so we were successful in that endeavor. And I just want to let you know he is one of the committed and outstanding governors that I have worked with during my 2 terms in the House of Delegates. One thing, he's accessible, he's there to listen, and he's very, very big advocate of K through 12 education.
All right.
And one thing, initiative that Dr. Flowers and I initiated years ago, and we went right straight to the governor's office. We're trying to get a birthing center here in Greensville County. Because you know we don't have an OB ward at our hospital. So we went to ask Governor Kaine for his assistance. We didn't get it done, but he was one of our greatest advocates on Capitol Hill and trying to get that center here in Greensville and Port. And I want to thank you personally.
Absolutely. You made a good case.
We put money
now, who would have taken that?
Oh, I know.
Who would have taken that? Let's see if we can
it started with an R.
That happens a lot. That happens a lot. But after Tim, we're going to have our Senator, Senator Mark Warner, as he's known as one of the best senators.
Yeah.
About Senator Mark Warner, and you know I came to your pig roast that other month.
I know.
Yeah, I was there.
But you didn't stand that silly line.
No, I didn't stand still in line. Yeah. But he is one of the most successful and great thinkers that I have ever met. He's a person who can galvanize people, an individual on both sides of the line. So I can say he's a bipartisan individual because during this day and time in Congress, and of course when we were on Capitol Hill, it takes both parties to make it.
Oh, yes.
And that's what we need, and that's why we need these gentlemen to go back on Capitol Hill to fight for.
Yes.
Yes. But one thing, Senator Warren, I want to thank you personally. When I took my initiative to run for the House of Delegates in 2005, he was one of the first individuals who contributed to my campaign. And of course, I can't forget his colleague. He was the second.
Well, that's a theme. That's a theme, I think.
Who was first?
But with no further ado, I want to thank these gentlemen just taking their time to come down in Southside Virginia, folks.
Yeah, right.
Because this is going to be one of the biggest elections that we have had in the nation and in the Commonwealth. The race with Senator Kaine. Already?
I know, I like it. I like it.
Yes, Senator Kaine.
Go to conference.
And of course with President Obama.
Of course.
Every vote's going to count, y'all. We have to make sure that we knock on doors, that we make phone calls, that we get out to our churches to let individuals know that they have to get out and vote on this coming Tuesday. Seemed like a few weeks ago was a long time away, but it's right around the corner. It's this Tuesday, y'all. So we have to do everything that brings Southside Virginia to make sure that the D's turn out for this gentleman and for President Obama. We need you. We need you. So with no further ado.
All right, thank you, Ron. Thank you guys very much. We are are really excited to be here. Mark and I are great friends. We've known each other for 32 years. We have done events today in Wise County, Bristol, Danville, Martinsville, and Emporia. And then we're going back to Richmond, and then he's driving from Richmond back to Northern Virginia. And then we got a full weekend and a full Monday, but we are now just,
tired already.
I know, we are just a very few days away from what I think is going to be a real good election. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank Rosalind. I really had a great time working with Rosalind when I was governor and she was representing this area. I have a great respect for her healthcare background. Having somebody with a healthcare background in the House is really important. I respect her community outreach. She and Rufus and so many of you do so much great work, and it always feels very good when I'm able to come down to an event with her, and it really is important here at the end. This is about turnout to win this election, and I'll just say a word about it, and then I'll say a word about Mark, and he'll close us up. Virginia is the closest state in the nation right now in the Senate race. This Senate race has been the closest one. For 19 months I've been running this race full time. There's this Politico organization that ranks Senate races every month, 10 closest Senate races in the United States. My race against George Allen has been the closest one for 15 of the 19 months. So it's really close. And the presidential race. Virginia and Colorado, as of yesterday, were the two closest states in the country. And I haven't looked at the polls today, so I don't know how it may have changed, but it's close. And that means we've got to turn out. But we've got to make sure, you know, that we want to show that it wasn't a fluke in 2008. That when Virginia went for President Obama and hadn't gone Democratic since 1964, you know, we want to show that it wasn't a fluke and we can do it again. And we have a great chance to do it, but we got to make the choice very, very plain. Let me say a word about choices between George Allen and me, and then a word about grassroots, and a word about smart. So a word about choices. We want to know how to fix the economy. My opponent basically, he was in the Senate already. When he was in the Senate, he started, we had a booming economy, and when he left, we were going into a tailspin. Because his view of the economy is, you grow the economy just by cutting, you know, taxes on the wealthiest or cutting regulations. You can't cut your way to prosperity. Families have to tighten their belts, and governments too. But if you're just cutting, you're not going to help yourself succeed. So I believe differently. I think you grow your economy by investing in education, by investing in infrastructure, road, rail, bridges, broadband, by investing in small businesses. So it's a cutting strategy against an investing strategy, and that's pretty clear between George Allen and me. Second, we've got to deal with the budget and find a solution to the deficit. And Mark is working on that with the bipartisan group of senators. I know something about deficits. I know something about budgets. I had to shrink a state budget during a recession as revenues were declining. I had to make a lot of cuts, but make cuts in a way that was compassionate, that didn't shred the safety net, that didn't hurt vulnerable people, that kept the economy positioned forward. I learned how to do that. But I definitely learned that you can make cuts the right way, but if you're only cutting, you're making a mistake. Again, it's back to investing. You got to invest. It's like, you know, you can't just, if you're running a forestry operation, you can't just cut down trees. You got to plant some seeds too. And so you need to be making investments along the way, and that's something that I very much believe. My opponent has a different feeling. His feeling about how to get rid of a budget deficit is just to cut everything. Medicare, privatize Social Security. He voted for that when he was in the Senate. Cut education, cut infrastructure. You're not going to grow economy by doing that. But the thing that is probably the most important, and Rosalind has already just referred to it, is putting people in office who really know how to work together. I mean, I know it's been very disappointing to me. It's been disappointing, I'm sure, to all of us, to see over the last 4 years, you know, a president get inaugurated and then everybody on the other side say right away, well, our #1 goal is to make sure he's a winner. This attitude of, if you're of the other party, you're my enemy, and I'm not going to do anything to help you succeed, even if my blocking you means I hurt the nation. That is so frustrating. I was a mayor in Richmond, very diverse city. People chose me to be mayor, my council colleagues, because I could help folks work together. Then I was lieutenant governor and governor. I had 2 Republican houses for 6 of the 8 years. We didn't agree all the time, but we could work together. I'm going to go into the Senate to be a colleague with Mark. Certainly, we're great partners and friends, but with Republican senators too, with House members, and I'll definitely be a partner with the President of the United States. My opponent cannot say that. I can tell you I'll be a partner with the President of the United States because for 3 years when I was governor, in my first 3 years, President Bush was president. And I disagreed with him on a lot, but boy, anything I could agree with him on for the good of the Commonwealth or country, I would. I'd go up and stand with him at press conferences, and we'd work on projects together. If it's good for the country and Commonwealth and we agree, then I'm going to pull the oars to make a president successful. And then President Obama was president my last year. I was the national co-chair of the campaign, and we worked together on a lot of things, and we still do. I'll be a partner with the president because the president is the president. My opponent does not feel that way. He had some billboards, and some of you seen them. They've been putting them up in Southside. They didn't necessarily put them up everywhere else. But the billboards have a picture of me and the president, and it says, Tim Kaine, Obama's senator, not Virginia's. Now, the first time I saw that, which was last April, my first reaction was, wow, he's calling me senator awful early. That's kind of nice. Obama's senator. That's nice. I like the title. But you know, the thing that really struck me about it was the real message of that billboard, Tim Kaine, Obama's senator, not Virginia's, is it's somehow anti-Virginian to support the President of the United States. We're the birthplace of presidents. We have all folks who have taken an oath to work with a commander-in-chief, with our veterans and our active duty military. To pitch the notion that it's anti-Virginian to support the president is just wrong. So I'll go in and I'll be a partner. I'll be a partner with the president. I'll be a partner with Republicans. I'll be a partner with folks like Mark who are building bridges, and that's what we need. The last thing I'll just say is this. Because this race is so close, what you can do over the next 4 days, are we at 4, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, until the polls close Tuesday night. It's about exactly 4 days and 20 minutes. No, 4 days and 35 minutes. What you can do to the post close with your, just the person to person really matters. It may not matter in a state, if it's going to be a 20-point margin, but in a state where it's going to be close, there's still undecided voters. There are still voters who are probably on our side but may or may not vote. Your ability to persuade people at the end is what really matters. So canvassing and phone calling and working polls. I've been saying as I've traveled around the last couple of days, if you think about it, who is an undecided voter by now? But there still are. I mean, about 3% of the vote, that's like 120,000 voters would still be undecided. And what we would know about an undecided voter is this. They're clearly not voting based on the party label, because they know what those labels are, but they haven't decided. They're clearly not waiting for one more negative ad. They've seen all the negative ads, right? That's not what's going to make them decide. What they're looking for, I believe, is a positive word from someone they trust. And that could be a friend, it could be a neighbor, it could be someone in family, it could be somebody you work with, somebody you go to school with, a positive word from someone you trust. And sometimes the someone you trust doesn't even have to be anybody you know. Somebody who calls you on the phone and says, hey, I live in your town, I don't know you, but here's who I'm voting for and here's why, and can I answer a question for you? You need the information to make up your mind. A robo-dial isn't somebody they trust. A negative TV ad isn't someone they trust. But
are they saying, you're not saying you hang up on the ones when we call you?
Yeah, I did. Art just recorded a robo-dial for me. You almost outside. But a positive word from someone you trust is what's going to convince folks. So I'll just at the end of the day say this. These things will be if they're meant to be. I have a strong feeling. I was a missionary in Honduras 30 years ago, and we had this phrase, si Dios quiere, if God wills it, thy will be done. This race, greater hands than ours know how it's going to work out, but we need to do all we can do. What's called upon us is not that Mother Teresa used to say, we're not called to be successful, we're just called to be faithful. If we're just faithful and do what we know how to do, then this thing will work out the right way. And I have a good feeling about it today. My gut's telling me that we're going to win this thing, and we're not going to win in spite of Virginia. We're going to win because of and with Virginia if we do what we know how to do. Now, somebody who has shown us how to do it, who's taught me an awful lot about public life. I had the fortune of being lieutenant governor when Mark was governor, and it turned out to be really valuable because I got to be governor, and Roz, we were governor in the tough, we coincided and worked together in the toughest recession since the 1930s. We had to make a lot of hard decisions. Had I not been a lieutenant governor working with Mark for 4 years and seeing how he managed his own significant challenges, I wouldn't have been able to manage some of the state's challenges in the way that I did. I'm really happy to count this man as a dear friend, and I think Virginia's really lucky to have Mark as our senator. And with that, how about a big round of applause for Mark Warner?
Usually, I get to introduce him. This time he went first. Thank you to the future junior senator. Thank Rosalind.
I'm sure that's the last time he'll ever say it.
It is, doing politics in America today is hard. And whether you serve on city council or board of supervisors or board of education, it's hard. And the fact that, and it's particularly hard these days in Richmond. And the fact that this young lady does such a good job for you in Richmond, let's, we have not celebrated love. I used to be able to say that things were so crazy in Washington that it even made Richmond look rational when the General Assembly was in session. But after this last year, when things got really crazy, I can't even say that anymore. Think about where we've been today, too. We started in Wise County. That's right there next to West Virginia and Kentucky. In the mountains. There was snow on the ground from the hurricane as we got out this morning. And we went from there to down to the Tennessee line in Bristol and over to Martinsville, over to Danville. You know, kind of saved Emporia and Greensville for last. The best. Not my first rodeo. And if we had one more place, that might be all. But you know, and I want to just tell all of you, thank you for coming out. It's Friday night. You know, it's a hard night to get out. It's been a long week. To be willing to come out and be part of this process. Because we all want the president and Tim to win, but we also all just want to pray for Wednesday to have to stop those ads. And be able to
That was great. That was beautiful.
You know, and I just, you know, no, I know. It's like, you know, the amount of money. Think about, they spent $20 million in super PAC outside ads trying to tear down this man. Think about that $20 million. How many people that could have sent to college? How many jobs it could have created? How many people that might have been able to fund an OBGYN center
for about 5 years.
You know? Or at the national level, it's now over $2 billion. You know, I'm concerned about this big debt we've got. You know, we could have used some of those dollars a lot better helping people than tearing people down. And one of the things that Tim mentioned, it's not only getting people who may be undecided, but there are a whole lot of people. And I wonder at times whether some folks who want to just turn on so many negative ads, they may not convince you to, you know, vote against somebody, but they may just say, oh, to heck with all of them. Because oftentimes a person not voting is a vote against moving this country forward. Because oftentimes the people who decide whether they're not going to vote or not are people who, you know, we need, who have more at stake in many ways in this election than others. And that's why, you know, if you're tired of the ads and tired of everything else, it's only 3 days and 15 hours more. It really is down to what you can do. I just want to make a couple other comments. One is, you know, we had some pretty good news today. You know, the job numbers came out and they were higher than expected. Now, they're not where they need to be. You know, unemployment is still too high. But I remember when I got this job, I got hired at the same time the president got hired. And I'd been a business guy. And I didn't even appreciate until I got there and saw how close this whole economy was coming to going completely down the tubes. We were losing 800,000 jobs a month. This past month we got 171,000 new jobs. Now, it isn't perfect, but we are headed back in the right direction. You know, confidence is building. I want Tim mentioned, I very much believe after the election it's time to take off your Democrat hat and Republican hat and be an American first. I'm working hard on this debt and deficit and some job stuff in a bipartisan way. But you know, Dr. Kaine made this mention. It's okay with me with cell phones. I know some of you may not remember. I was the co-founder of the cell phone company Nextel. You know that? You hear an annoying sound and go, I hear it. Leave your phone on, especially now that I'm a federal worker. Please, I need those cell phones. Keep them going. But I do wonder at times. Come on in. I'm going to be brief. Come on in. I'm not going to be. Of course, anytime a politician says they're going to be brief, watch out. But you know, it was remarkable. Think at any other time in American history with any other president, if somebody had said barely had he been sworn in, when the leader of the opposition party in the Senate would have said, my number one challenge is not to work with this guy, my number one thing is not to get America better, my number one priority is to defeat this president. I mean, it is not, if that's not the politics that's going to keep America moving forward. I see this gentleman back here who's a veteran. Thank you for your service. And one of the things this president has also done is, and it's not, the VA's not perfect, but instead of just talking about veterans, he's put increased resources in the Veterans Administration. It's this president who honored the commitment to bring and end the war in Iraq. And this president, now everybody else realizes that it's time to bring our troops home from Afghanistan and do some nation building in America as well. And it was this president that took out Osama bin Laden and created this challenge. So, we've got to do all we can. One last word about Tim, because you don't need to hear any more from us. You need to go out and harass some people tonight. Because I've known this man for 32 years. We went to law school together. He became a lawyer, I became a client. But we both have been very blessed. We've both done very well. But I know him. I know his character. I know his family. We went to law school at Harvard together. Fancy law firm. He could have gone out and just made money. What did he do? He was a missionary. Then he was a civil rights lawyer. Then he was involved in his local community in Richmond, being a city council member. And then he was mayor. And the only thing worse, harder than being in the Senate is probably being a local elected official. Then he happened to be lieutenant governor with one of my favorite governors. And he was a great governor on his own. And what is important is also kind of the values you bring. This is a good person. The last thing the Senate needs is more people who are going to go there and just blame problems. Sit down and blame somebody else and tell you what's wrong with everything, as opposed to how we get things fixed. And if we want the president to succeed, because I think the president is going to get here, if we want the president to succeed, he's got to have a Congress that will meet him halfway. That doesn't mean we're going to agree with the president all the time. Lord knows I'm not all the time. We don't agree with anybody. My wife says she doesn't agree with me. If I'm at half the time she agrees with me, I'm lucky. But at least it says if we don't agree, we're going to sit down and figure out a way to work it out. And that's what he has done, Tim Kaine has done throughout his professional life, his personal life, and his political life. So let's make sure in these last 3.5 days we do all we can. We re-elect our president, and you send me a great new junior senator.
Are we fired up?
Yeah. Ready to go.
Ready to go.